I often say that we, as farmers, think about the diversity of what we're growing and where we're growing and how we're growing it, but we often don't think about the diversity of who's farming it. So if we can think about diversity in all its forms and actually start getting Indigenous people back into agricultural systems, we're going to have a much better and a much stronger and more resilient agricultural system going forward. The Indigenous agricultural representation is about 2% of Australia, which is behind the general population representation, which is currently about 3.8%. We know that Indigenous youth is the only growing youth demographic in Australia. What we're really hoping is that while we actually start focusing on doubling Indigenous representation, we actually need to double it again by 2050 to make sure that we have representation of population going forward. So we actually just need a lot more people. We need to actually retain people who are getting involved and really strengthen the ability for young people, and then particularly, I guess, young Indigenous people to start owning farms and managing farms to get more and more people back into the sector. The biggest gap, I think, at the moment that we can identify is pay gaps and also racism within sectors. So we need to really take that on, start looking around a whole range of other industries and thinking about how we can get those HR and employment kind of skills and bring back into agriculture to actually have a much richer and gets a lot more strengthened agricultural workforce, particularly for Indigenous people. We need to try and get more Indigenous people into the space. If we can actually show that there's a pipeline and a demand for Indigenous products, then hopefully young people can take that to a bank and say, actually, here's a demand, that's what we're trying to meet, and that will help kind of overcome the challenges of what we're seeing of young people getting involved at the moment, of trying to prove a market and show that there's that potential. If we can show that the market's there, we can kind of start working backwards as well. This all starts with connections and relationships. We have a mutual love of this beautiful place that we live in called Australia now. That we have a beautiful love for our farm and our ecosystem and the way in which all of that kind of correlates. And if we just start by having a conversation around what all of our involvement should look like on that country, then actually that's the kind of where rubber hits the road, where we can actually start really building those relationships and thinking about what this landscape should look like into the future.